Hi there, welcome to FlowDecoded. Tonight, we begin with a story you probably weren't prepared for, because let's be honest, no one thinks Canada is going to go to war. But here you are, standing on the edge of history, in boots that don't quite fit, holding a standard-issue rifle that smells like sadness and machine oil. You might want to sit back, relax, and let the chaos unfold. But not just yet. Because what's about to happen, you might not survive it. So before you get too comfortable, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy the madness I'm about to drop on you. And hey, tell me what you're feeling in the comments. Dread? Curiosity? Confusion about why maple syrup is now contraband? To make sure you don't miss the next chapter in this bizarre saga, hit that like button and follow along for the next video. And now, let's begin. You open your eyes to a sky that's way too pink for comfort. It's 5:47 a.m. The smell of diesel, salt, and something like burning plastic clings to the air. Outside your tent, the ground is already vibrating. Not like some guy brought a bass speaker to the camp kind of vibration, but more like there's a whole fleet of naval monsters rumbling to life. You're stationed at Naval Border Outpost Bravo, which used to be just a sleepy logistics checkpoint on the shore of Lake Erie. Now, it's the launchpad for something America hasn't done in decades: full-scale naval assault against a neighboring country. The neighbor, by the way, is Canada. Yes, the land of Tim Hortons, universal healthcare, and people who say sorry when you bump into them. That Canada. But this isn't the Canada you remember from documentaries or hockey reruns. This is a version fueled by fury, intelligence leaks, and what the Pentagon now calls unprovoked strategic positioning, which, in normal people language, means someone poked the bear, and the bear is surprisingly polite about declaring war. You pull on your jacket. It's stiff with frost. Your breath comes out in heavy white clouds. A junior officer, whose name you can't remember, runs past screaming something about fleet deployment timeline updates. You catch the only important word: launch. Your unit's objective today? Secure the St. Lawrence Seaway before Canadian forces can deploy drone submarines. Why? Because the St. Lawrence is the last viable naval artery into the Canadian heartland, and both sides know whoever controls it first wins the Great Northern Front. As you jog toward the dock, you pass rows of massive amphibious assault vehicles, beasts with names like Liberty Hammer and Freedom Goose. Okay, that last one was probably a prank sticker, but the vibe fits. The water churns as 5 destroyers warm their engines. The USS Franklin Pierce's turbines are loud enough to drown out your own thoughts, which, let's be real, is kind of a blessing. Because you're terrified. Not just of battle, but of what this war represents. Canada wasn't supposed to be an enemy. This was supposed to be a global alliance, a joke made real. And yet, here you are, boarding a ship with live rounds, target maps, and a sealed letter in your pocket labeled, "In case of KIA." The guy next to you, Sergeant Lenny, hands you a cup of coffee so black it could legally be considered a threat to national security. "You think they'll shoot back?" he asks. You glance out at the shoreline. Fog is thick. You can't see past the edge of the harbor. "Of course they'll shoot back," you say. "But like, aggressively? Or just like, politely ask us to stop?" You laugh. First time today. But deep down, you know, Canada has the tech, the troops, and the quiet rage that comes from being underestimated for centuries. As the fleet begins to move, you feel the weight of everything settle on your shoulders. The armor, the rifle, the geopolitical absurdity of this entire mess. You remember the briefing from the night before. Some general with too many medals and not enough eyebrows stood in front of a digital map blinking red with Canadian defense zones. "Make no mistake," he said. "This will not be a parade." No kidding. You're 38 minutes into the mission and already your ship is being pinged by radar pulses so strong they rattle your fillings. Somewhere out there, in the freezing mist, Canadian missile silos are waking up. A voice crackles in your earpiece. "Prepare for hostile visuals." That's military code for, "You might want to duck soon." And right on cue, something whizzes overhead. A boom follows 5 seconds later. The shockwave punches the air from your lungs. They're not kidding. You grip the railing as the USS Liberty Hammer adjusts course, avoiding whatever just tried to turn you into patriotic sushi. Sergeant Lenny squints toward the skyline. Is that a leaf?" You look. Sure enough, Painted on the tail of the attacking drone is a bright red maple leaf. Welcome to war. It's weirdly festive. By 7:15 a.m., the battle group has entered enemy waters. At 7:22 a.m., two of your escort ships are downed by precision-guided Snowhawks, experimental Canadian torpedoes allegedly powered by ice-cold passive aggression and artificial intelligence. You thought that was a joke in the briefing. It was not. By 7:30 a.m., your boots are on Canadian soil. The air smells like pine trees and artillery smoke. In the distance, a civilian convenience store burns. The sign out front still reads, "Welcome, eh?" Sergeant Lenny turns to you, eyes wide. "Dude, we just invaded Canada." You nod, slowly. The snow crunches underfoot like cracking bones. And in that moment you realize, this war isn't just about borders. It's about identity, legacy, and the unspoken rule that America never thought would be broken. You never fight the friendliest country on earth. Too late now. You reload your rifle, take a deep breath, and step forward into the fog. Whatever this is, it's only just begun. You didn't expect to be in the middle of a major capital city before breakfast, but by 10:23 a.m. you're crouching behind a broken statue of a moose in downtown Ottawa, holding your breath as smoke rises in columns thick enough to block out the sun. 30 minutes ago, this place had a skyline. Now, it looks like someone dropped a high-resolution napalm filter on Google Maps. The Canadian response was faster than anyone expected. You thought the U.S. fleet would just sail in, wave a few flags, and maybe take a scenic photo next to the Parliament buildings. But instead, you got laser-guided artillery, anti-aircraft batteries disguised as Tim Hortons, and a weird automated drone that yelled "sorry" before exploding. You've been in combat before, but nothing like this. "Are we the bad guys?" Sergeant Lenny whispers beside you. You pause. "We started it, but they're definitely finishing it." The street is littered with twisted metal and crumpled green signs with bilingual warnings. Detour, déviation. You're pretty sure the signs are taunting you now. Somewhere to your left, a building collapses in slow motion. You feel the heat before you hear the sound. And then it hits you. The target wasn't military. It was a hospital. You don't know if the strike came from your side or theirs. Either way, it's awful. Welcome to modern war. Drones that don't miss, missiles with AI that makes moral decisions faster than you can blink, and propaganda so thick you have to question every explosion. You remember the mission briefing from just hours ago. Capture Ottawa by noon. Avoid civilian casualties. Disable infrastructure, not lives. Yeah, well, someone messed that up. A Canadian tank rumbles around the corner. It's not the kind you've seen in movies. This one's decked out in digital camo, powered by biofuel, and driven by someone who apparently hates you personally. You and your squad scatter. Sergeant Lenny dives behind a trash can. Ironically, it has a recycling sticker that reads, "Let's keep Canada clean." You duck into a burned-out souvenir shop. Snow globes are melted on the shelves. Maple leaf keychains swing from a rack as the ground trembles. You peek out through the broken window just in time to see a U.S. bomb. Attack drones scream overhead, like a metallic bat out of hell, and fire 3 precision rockets. The tank disappears in a fireball. Sergeant Lenny cheers. You wince. Because 5 seconds later, you hear the cry of someone trapped in the wreckage. You're starting to understand what this war is. Not good versus evil. Not freedom versus tyranny. Just chaos with a PR department. Your radio crackles. It's command. Primary objective secured. Parliament neutralized. Begin perimeter lockdown. Perimeter lockdown? You look around. There is no perimeter. There is only smoke, fire, and confusion. And the sound of a national anthem playing on loop from a battered outdoor speaker, except it keeps glitching at the line, "We stand on guard for thee." You reload. A Canadian sniper opens fire from the roof of a bookstore. You and your squad respond. The building collapses like a deck of cards soaked in gasoline. Afterward, no one says anything for a long time. There's nothing left to say. You pass by the shattered remains of a school. The chalkboard still reads, "Quiz today, geography." You almost laugh. Almost. But your boots are soaked in something you'd rather not name, and you're starting to wonder what geography even means when lines on the map are this easy to erase. Your squad regroups in what used to be a coffee shop. The espresso machine is intact, because of course it is. Apocalypse or not, espresso machines always survive. You sip from a cracked cup. It's bitter, but hot. Do you think they'll forgive us? Someone asks. You don't answer. Not because you don't want to, but because the truth might taste worse than the coffee. Outside, the snow is falling again, ash mixed with ice. It settles on everything: flags, bodies, burned out trucks. And then you see it. A lone Canadian flag still standing, torn, scorched, but upright. A symbol, or a warning. Depends on who's telling the story. Your squad prepares to move again. The next objective? Secure the communications tower. It's still intact, probably because both sides want to control the narrative more than the city. And as you step out into the broken daylight, you realize something. This isn't going to be a short war. This isn't going to be a clean war. This is going to be the kind of war that shows up in history books with footnotes like, "We still don't know who fired first," and "Don't believe the documentaries." You grip your rifle tighter. Because Ottawa may have fallen before lunch, but the day is far from over. And you're still alive. For now. You would have sworn yesterday that Canadians don't play mind games. Turns out, they just hadn't needed to. Until now. By sunrise, your squad is deep into what's been dubbed the Maple Mirage campaign, Canada's first large-scale counterattack. But this isn't a barrage of tanks and brute force. No, it's smarter than that. Subtler. Like a prank by someone with a PhD in psychological warfare and a deep emotional attachment to national symbols. And you're right in the middle of it. At first, it doesn't even feel like an offensive. More like someone edited your GPS just to screw with you. Every digital map update sends you in circles. Landmarks vanish, replaced with holographic projections. One moment you think you're near the Rideau Canal, next thing you know you're standing in front of a very convincing 3D render of a cow farm that doesn't exist. Command calls it tactical visual disruption. You call it what the hell is going on? You're walking through a suburban neighborhood that seems completely untouched by war. Trees are blooming, lawns are perfect. A little too perfect. There's even a lemonade stand. Sergeant Lenny approaches it cautiously, weapon drawn. A small sign reads, "Free lemonade for liberators." You look at him. That's gotta be a trap, right? He shrugs. Or, maybe Canadians really are this nice. Then the lemonade stand explodes. Nobody gets hurt, but it's enough to teach you that this war has a very weird sense of humor. You get flashbacks of watching Home Alone as a kid, except this time, you're the intruder. And Canada is Kevin with a state-sponsored defense budget. Then come the sound attacks. Your helmet starts picking up random frequencies, bagpipes, moose mating calls, and a disturbing loop of Justin Bieber's Baby pitched down to a demonic level. You'd take artillery over this any day. Is this psychological warfare, you ask? Sergeant Lenny nods, grimacing. It's working. A drone swoops overhead, projecting a hologram of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau giving a motivational speech, except the words don't match his lips. It's deepfake to say things like, "To our American brothers, we forgive you. Now please go home and stop embarrassing yourselves." You shoot it down, but 5 more appear. One of your guys opens fire on a billboard, only to realize it's not real. Your bullets pass through and hit a parked car, which explodes in real fire this time. And that's when you realize they're mixing fake visuals with real consequences. Confuse you long enough and you start shooting at shadows. Shadows that sometimes shoot back. At one point, your squad captures a Canadian soldier. He's maybe 19. Looks like he just came from hockey practice. You sit him down, ask him what the hell this all is. He smiles. You guys came in thinking you were playing Call of Duty. We're playing Portal. You don't know whether to be impressed or terrified. Probably both. Your comms go down next. Not jammed, replaced. Every channel you try is now playing Canadian trivia. Someone answers incorrectly, and a tiny quadcopter drops a glitter bomb on them. The psychological impact is worse than you'd think. But then things get really serious. You reach the town of Kingston, strategic location, radio relays, logistics hub. Or, well, it used to be. Now it's a literal mirror maze. Not metaphorically, literally. Every street corner is covered in panels of reflective tech. Drones fly low, beaming lights across rooftops to make it look like there are twice as many soldiers and vehicles as there actually are. You think you're being flanked? Turns out it's your own squad's reflection. You think you're making progress. Turns out you've walked the same block 4 times. Then a sniper opens fire from inside the illusion. One of your squad members goes down. Just drops. No warning. Just a splash of red on pavement. You stop laughing. This is no prank anymore. You hunker down, breath ragged, trying to calculate which direction the real threat is coming from. You've been trained for kinetic warfare, for electronic warfare, but not existential warfare. Not this sense of being hunted in a funhouse. You finally call in a drone strike to wipe the whole damn area, but your air support responds with, unable to verify coordinates, visual input compromised. Of course it is. In the middle of it all, a local civilian walks past you, an old woman holding a grocery bag, walking a corgi wearing a tiny helmet with a maple leaf sticker on it. She nods politely. You nod back. Then she turns the corner, pulls out a signal beacon, and disappears into a fake wall. Spy? Resistance? Government AI hologram? At this point, who knows? When you finally crawl out of the maze an hour later, your squad's down 2 more people. You're bleeding from the forehead. Sergeant Lenny has a black eye from punching what he thought was a Canadian soldier. It was a decoy wrapped in foam armor and duct tape. You're exhausted and humiliated. The Maple Mirage wasn't designed to kill you. It was designed to make you question everything. And it's working. You find shelter in a burned-out gas station. No signs, no illusions, just metal and ash. You sit on a crate, sipping from a dented canteen, wondering how you can fight an enemy who prefers confusion over confrontation, illusions over explosions. As night falls, a message crackles in through your backup comms. Enemy morale remains high. Tactical disorientation has delayed our advance. Hold your position. And so, you do. But something tells you, this isn't the last time you'll see Canadian creativity used as a weapon. You thought they were soft. You were wrong. And now? Now you're part of the punchline. Your boots crunch on frostbitten soil as the wind howls like some ancient spirit screaming, "What are you even doing here?" Honestly, fair question. It's been 48 hours since Ottawa fell and 18 hours since the Maple Mirage scrambled every drone and brain cell in your unit. And now, because someone in command hates you, you're in North Dakota. Frozen, forgotten North Dakota. Why? Because this is where the Canadians strike next. At least, that's what the brief said. They called it low probability, high consequence. Translation: if it happens, you're screwed. So here you are, standing in 12 inches of snow that feels more like powdered cement, with the wind threatening to sandblast your face off. You can't tell if your jaw is frozen shut or if you've just run out of things to say. Your unit's been tasked with guarding a missile silo near Minot. It's strategic, yes, but also conveniently placed in the middle of absolutely nowhere. The kind of nowhere that even birds refuse to migrate over. You ever seen a Canadian in North Dakota before? You ask Sergeant Lenny. He exhales steam. Only in hockey season. You both laugh, nervously, because you have seen a Canadian here. Just one. Yesterday. He was wearing full white camo, face painted with frost-resistant thermal gel, and carried a crossbow. A crossbow. Who brings a crossbow to a 21st century war? Canadians, apparently. You shot at him. He vanished into the snow like a ninja with a polar bear's sense of vengeance. Now your team is paranoid. You see things in every snowdrift. You swear the icicles are moving. The communications tower hums like it's thinking about betraying you. And then it happens. Not with a bang, but a whisper. Power fails. Radios die. Drones fall from the sky like birds hit by invisible shotgun shells. All around you, silence. No gunfire. No yelling. Just the sound of snow falling and the sickening realization that you're no longer in control. "What the hell?" whispers one of your men. No one answers. Because the Canadians just turned off North Dakota, you're plunged into electronic darkness. And that's when the cold hits for real. Not just weather cold, but existential cold. The kind that comes when you realize the enemy has cut your sensors, your heat, and even your hope. You hear a distant crunch, footsteps in snow. You raise your rifle. Nothing. Another crunch, to the left. You pivot. Still nothing. It's not until you spot the glint of a scoped lens in the tree line that you realize you're being watched from all angles. And they're not attacking. Not yet. They're letting the cold do the work. One by one, your team members start losing it. Frostbite takes fingers. Someone starts hallucinating, screaming that his mom is outside handing out mittens. Another guy tries to hotwire a downed drone to use it as a space heater. You huddle in a snowbank next to Sergeant Lenny, both of you wrapped in emergency blankets that feel about as useful as paper towels in a monsoon. "We're not gonna die out here, right?" he asks. You lie. "No way." But you're not so sure. Because this isn't a battle. This is a siege. A slow, creeping siege without walls or cannons. Just nature. And a Canadian plan designed by someone who clearly read The Art of War while ice fishing. You try to move to a nearby outpost but find the roads mined with what appears to be thermal-triggered snow charges. Not explosive, just deafening. A psychological scare tactic. You detour, only to find your footprints have been followed. Perfectly. Traced with surgical precision. And now you're being hunted. Not by a battalion. Not by jets. By maybe 8 elite Canadian snowtroopers. Elite enough to make no sound, leave no heat trail, and still paint giant red maple leaves on their vests like they're daring you to shoot. Eventually, you find a barn. Abandoned, creaky, full of hay and frost-covered tools. You and your 5 remaining squad mates break in and seal the door with a snow shovel and 2 broken rifles. It's warmer in here, until you realize why. The barn already has a fire burning, and beside it, 3 untouched mugs of hot cocoa, with marshmallows. Sergeant Lenny stares at them like they're nuclear bombs. "Do we drink it?" You hesitate. Then one of your guys sips. He sighs. "Oh my God, it's real cocoa." That's when you notice the note taped to the back of the barn door. It reads, "We could have killed you already. This is mercy. Retreat south before the next storm. Love, Alberta." You stare at it for a long moment, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or draft a thank you note. But the message is clear. They're not just outmaneuvering you, they're outclassing you. You gather your squad. One guy's crying, but he says it's just the wind. Sure, buddy. You decide to retreat, not because you're ordered to, but because they let you. As you trudge back toward the extraction point, a Canadian drone buzzes overhead. This one doesn't shoot. It plays music. It's Let It Go from Frozen. Sergeant Lenny mutters, "We're never living this down." You nod. Because he's right. North Dakota didn't fall to fire. It fell to frost, strategy, and terrifyingly disciplined kindness. And in a war where perception matters as much as bullets, that's a victory no one saw coming. You've always hated ice. You're not even sure why. Maybe it's the way it creaks under your feet like a polite death threat. Or maybe it's the fact that, today, you're driving 20 tons of military-grade armored regret across it. That's right. Command has rerouted your convoy across Lake Michigan. Not around, not over, through. Because apparently, someone up the chain thought, "What's safer than frozen water during an active war zone?" And the rest of command said, "Sounds legit." So here you are. Tank treads clanking across an endless sheet of ice that stretches beyond visibility, with your squad riding in a hybrid vehicle nicknamed the Patriot Popsicle. The mission? Reach the city of Muskegon and establish control of the eastern lakeshore. Intel suggests Canada is deploying biological warfare units disguised as shipping crates. You'd laugh, but the last time you did, a snowflake flew directly into your mouth and froze to the roof of your mouth. Nature has a sick sense of humor. You look out the tiny slit in the armored window. Nothing. No trees, no buildings, no landmarks. Just whiteness. And your creeping paranoia. Sergeant Lenny breaks the silence with, "You think the ice is Canadian too?" You sigh. "Right now, I'm not ruling anything out." Half an hour in, the convoy's lead vehicle halts. Something's wrong. A scout team goes ahead to check. A simple recon mission, 5 guys, 10 minutes. They don't come back. 15 minutes pass. Still nothing. Then a shape emerges from the snowstorm. One of the scouts. Barely walking. Covered in frost, missing one glove, eyes wide with something between horror and confusion. He says 3 words before passing out. The ice breathes. Nobody moves. You all just stare at each other. Because there are many things you expect to hear in war. The ice breathes is not on that list. Command tells you to press on. Of course they do. You move forward, slowly. The ice beneath your vehicle starts to groan louder. You swear you hear whispers, but it could be the wind. or your own sanity packing its bags. That's when the scanner pings something beneath you. Movement. Beneath the ice. Before you can say a word, the vehicle behind you erupts. Not explodes, erupt, like something yanked it downward. A massive section of ice shatters. The vehicle is gone in seconds. Everyone panics. You radio command. Possible enemy beneath the ice. They respond with, negative. That region is geologically inactive. Helpful. You exit your vehicle and crouch by the hole where the other one vanished. The water is dark. Still. Then, a shimmer. Like a tail. Metallic. Artificial. That's when it clicks. The Canadians booby-trapped the lake. Not with bombs, with autonomous underwater drones. Designed to detect vehicle weight and burst through ice from below, like a shark. A really passive-aggressive, highly funded, polite shark. You scream for everyone to back up. Too late. Another vehicle drops. The ice cracks like a thunderclap. You run. Everyone runs. The convoy scatters like ants from a magnifying glass. Behind you, the lake is swallowing metal whole. The Patriot popsicle doesn't make it. You're on foot now. Snow up to your knees. Cold air slicing your lungs. You can't tell if your toes still exist. Your weapon is frozen. Your breath looks like cigarette smoke from a dragon. And then the worst part hits. Your HUD flashes red. Biological signature detected. You pivot. A shipping container, one of the bio units command mentioned, is lodged halfway in the ice, like someone tried to hide it and failed. It bursts open. Mist spills out, purple and glistening. You cover your face, but your squad isn't as fast. 3 guys inhale it instantly. One collapses. The other 2 just stop. They're not dead. But they're not blinking either. Just standing there, swaying like creepy inflatable car lot dancers. You've seen nerve agents. This isn't that. This is worse. It's psychological. Your radio cracks with a whisper. Not a command, but a song? Oh, Canada. Distorted. Droning. Playing in reverse. That's when you understand. This bioweapon doesn't kill. It rewires loyalty. It's not a poison. It's a recruiting tool. You drag the 2 blinking soldiers away, praying they come back to themselves. The other? Gone. Staring into the mist, smiling. And then he walks straight into the ice hole. No splash. Just gone. You scream. But the wind eats it. You push forward, toward a small frozen dock where an evac chopper is supposed to meet you. Sergeant Lenny catches up, coughing, ice in his beard. You good? You ask. He nods. My nose froze solid, but yeah, otherwise thriving. Behind you, the lake is quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that means it's waiting. You radio for evac again. Nothing. Your HUD's dead. Batteries fried from cold. Then, over the horizon, you see it. A chopper. Finally. It lands on the dock, blades kicking up a blizzard. You toss the blinking soldiers in, help Lenny on board, and just as your foot hits the ramp, crack. The dock splits. You leap, barely making it as half the dock plunges into the lake. From the open ramp, you watch as the ice closes over the missing half like nothing happened. And then the chopper rises. Up, up, above the storm. Only then do you breathe again. You survive the lake. But the question remains. How the hell are you supposed to win a war against people who weaponize water, snow, and loyalty itself? You look down at the men still blinking in a trance, whispering half-formed lyrics to "O Canada" in reverse. You close your eyes. This war? It's not just about bullets anymore. It's about identity, and your side might be losing both. There are a few rules in war. Don't trust the weather. Don't eat anything handed to you by the enemy. And most of all, don't trust anyone who insists on wearing a hoodie indoors, especially if it has a maple leaf on it. You learned that one the hard way. You're back at base. Well, what passes for a base these days? A converted Walmart somewhere in Michigan, retrofitted with sandbags, chain link fences, and more coffee than a Seattle tech startup. After the Lake Michigan fiasco, your unit needed time to regroup, defrost, and maybe scream into a pillow for an hour. You're reviewing recon footage with the team. Sergeant Lenny is chewing on a protein bar that tastes like disappointment. Across the table is Corporal Jonah. Tall, quiet, always wears that red hoodie with a small maple leaf stitched onto the sleeve. You never thought much about it. Until now. He's leaning in, eyes darting between monitors, taking notes faster than anyone else in the room. You pause the video feed. Jonah, you say. Didn't you say you were on medical leave during Operation Snowglass? He nods. Yeah, sprained ankle. You squint. Because this footage here, that's you, limping, but with a rocket launcher, in British Columbia. He stares at you. Everyone stares at him. You reach for your sidearm, slowly, and that's when he moves, like lightning, inhumanly fast. He knocks over the table, slams Sergeant Lenny's head into a laptop, which somehow starts playing Drake, why always Drake, and bolts out of the room. Alarms blare, red lights spin. You're chasing a spy in a hoodie through the frozen aisles of a former megastore, dodging between abandoned rollback signs and expired bags of marshmallows. This wasn't in the manual. Jonah, or whatever his real name is, dives behind the clothing racks, knocks over a display of camo jackets, and vanishes like a ghost. You and 3 others split up. Your boots squeak on the polished floors. You pass a shelf labeled Made in America and chuckle at the irony. Then you hear it. The whisper. Sorry. You spin. Nothing. And then, bam! A fire extinguisher to the back of the head. You go down. Vision swimming. Everything feels cold. Or maybe that's just Michigan. Jonah leans over you, panting. You should have just ignored the hoodie, man. Then he's gone. When you wake up, Command is already in crisis mode. Turns out Jonah wasn't just a spy. He was broadcasting your entire mission plans through an encrypted signal masked as Spotify metadata. That's right. Every time someone streamed lo-fi chill beats from base, classified intel was hitching a ride. Canadian cyber ops at their finest. You sit in the infirmary, forehead stitched, ego bruised. How long was he with us, you ask. Since Omaha, someone says. That's 3 months. 3 months of shared meals, battlefield banter, and slightly off-map maneuvers that, in hindsight, always seemed a little too unlucky. He'd been redirecting patrols, sabotaging comms, and even accidentally issuing miscalibrated drone coordinates. And none of you noticed. Not even once. You feel sick. Not from the concussion, but from the betrayal. Sergeant Lenny limps in, bandaged and grumpy. Tell me we got him, he mutters. You shake your head. He's gone. Left a note on the whiteboard. What's it say? You hold it up. It reads, Thanks for the snacks. Also, we're watching your Netflix history. Y'all need help. Love, Canada. Lenny groans. Savage. You know what stings the most? He was one of you. You trained with him, ate with him, covered his 6. And now? Now you have no idea how many more are out there. How many quiet, smiling faces in American uniforms are actually sipping Tim Hortons in secret. Command launches an internal probe, but it's too late. The damage is done. Mission schedules, compromised. Supply routes, revealed. Even troop morale, shaken. Jonah didn't just steal intel, he stole trust. From now on, every glance is suspicious. Every joke feels forced. Every coffee break becomes an interrogation. Paranoia spreads like frostbite. And that's exactly what they wanted. Because in a war like this, information is ammunition. And you just got shot in the back. As you exit the infirmary, someone hands you a fresh hoodie. Black. No logos. You stare at it. Then toss it in the fire. From now on? No more hoodies. No more comfort. No more assumptions. This war just got personal. You always thought the phrase storming the Capitol was metaphorical. Like some dramatic political thriller title. But no. This morning, you wake up in a basement bunker under Washington, D.C., and everything above you is literally on fire. It started with a ripple. A soft tremor beneath your bunk, like the earth had coughed. Then came the sirens. Then came the silence. And now, as you crawl out of the stairwell into what used to be Pennsylvania Avenue, you realize the White House isn't white anymore. Half of it is gone. Not burned, vaporized. Where the West Wing used to be is now a crater, still hissing steam into the air like a dragon's breath. Concrete is melted like candle wax. Twisted rebar juts up like skeletal fingers. You stand there in the ash, blinking. This is not a metaphor. This is real. They hit us, someone whispers behind you. They actually hit here. And yeah, they did. Somehow, the Canadians managed to slip a high-altitude stealth missile past every NORAD system in place. Some say it came from the Arctic Circle. Others say it was launched from a submarine disguised as a cruise ship playing Celine Dion. You don't know which version to believe anymore. Because the only thing that matters now is this. The war is no longer over there. It's here, in your capital, in your front yard. You're immediately assigned to escort what's left of the federal leadership to a safe house, a location so secret even your orders are printed in disappearing ink. You memorize them in 30 seconds, then watch as the words melt off the page like they're ashamed of what they say. Your VIP? The president. Well, what's left of him? He's shaken, hair disheveled. Still wearing an American flag tie like it means something. He doesn't speak at first, just stares out the bulletproof SUV window at what used to be Lafayette Square. Now it's just pigeons and rubble. Was this us? He finally mutters. You don't answer, because deep down you're wondering the same thing. Was this a Canadian missile, or a consequence of your own overreach? Either way, you need to get him underground. Fast, because there's a second wave coming. Air raid sirens echo through the streets. From rooftops you see civilians scatter, tourists scream. A hot dog vendor tips his entire cart over trying to escape what he thinks is another strike. It's chaos. Not panic. Chaos. Calculated, confusing, destabilizing chaos. You guide the convoy toward the emergency entry to Raven Rock, a secure military compound built deep within the Appalachian Mountains. Some call it the underground Pentagon. You've never been there before. But the way things are going, you might never leave once you enter. Halfway there, you're ambushed. A drone swarm, Canadian-built, silent, sleek, shaped like maple leaves, because of course they are. They drop EMP bursts, frying half your convoy's systems. Engines stall, lights go black. You're forced to drive the rest of the way in a beat-up civilian jeep that smells like expired Axe body spray and despair. The president is in the back seat, reading aloud from The Art of War like it's going to save him. Appear weak when you are strong. You interrupt. Sir, now's not the time for Confucian TED Talks. He goes quiet. You reach the hidden entrance at dawn. Massive steel doors creak open like the gates to a dystopian theme park. You hustle the president inside. The guards salute you like you're someone important. You're not. You're just someone who still showed up. Inside, the compound is buzzing. Screens flicker with satellite images. Red markers blink over every major U.S. city. Chicago, Boston, Denver. Canada isn't just targeting military bases. They're targeting infrastructure. And somehow, they're always one step ahead. You grab a coffee, cold, bitter, somehow already stale. An analyst approaches with a tablet. We think they've infiltrated our command servers. Again, you ask? She nods. We're fighting blind. You lean against the wall and close your eyes. You can still smell the ash from the Capitol, still hear the sound of your own pulse racing, still feel the weight of every decision that led you here. This isn't just about sovereignty anymore. It's about symbolism. They didn't just bomb a building, they bombed belief. The idea that America was untouchable, unshakable, too big to fall. And now? Now you're in a hole in the ground, sipping sad coffee, wondering if maybe the Canadians weren't the underdogs all along, but the ones playing chess while you were flexing for the cameras. You're handed a new mission brief, classified. You open it. It simply says, "They know we're here. Prepare for breach." You stare at the words, then you look around. Steel walls, fluorescent lights, bunkers full of leaders, and you realize Washington may have fallen, but it's not over. Not yet. Because if there's one thing Americans are good at, it's turning disaster into a comeback story. Even if this one starts 600 feet underground. You've fought in trenches, through snowstorms, under missile fire, and now you're headed into the strangest battlefield yet, the internet. Yes, the war has moved to TikTok, and you're the face of it. You didn't sign up to be a digital warfare influencer, but Command has other ideas. After the Canadian stealth strike on DC, morale plummeted. Fear spread faster than bullets. The Pentagon realized something important. They were losing the narrative, and in modern war, that's just as dangerous as losing ground. So now you're standing in a makeshift green screen studio inside the Raven Rock bunker, wearing full gear and trying to figure out how to look cool without looking desperate. Behind the camera is a private who used to run a food review channel. Now he's in charge of editing memes with airstrike footage and lo-fi beats. Your first assignment? Say something inspirational, like Patton meets PewDiePie. You stare into the lens. Freedom is just one viral clip away? The private shakes his head. Nah, needs more alpha energy. You sigh and try again. This one's for every soldier who ever got teabagged in Call of Duty. Canada's going down. Boom. That's the one. Within hours, the clip has 1.2 million views. Comments flood in. LMAO, this war is wild. America finally dropping bars. Wait, is this real? The problem? Canada fights back harder. Their TikTok army is elite. You see videos from soldiers playing hockey while dodging drones. Dances synced to air raid sirens. A female Canadian sniper doing lip syncs while casually reloading her rifle. One Canadian unit posts a POV clip with the caption, "Just vibing while defending healthcare in ICE." It gets 9 million likes. You scroll through, horrified and impressed. This isn't propaganda, Sergeant Lenny mutters. This is art. Command responds by assigning you a full media team, a stylist, who offers to smudge dirt on your cheeks for grit, a scriptwriter, who insists you call Canada Snowlandia for comedic effect, and a drone camera operator with anxiety issues. You're now responsible for Operation Content Surge. The plan? Drown TikTok in patriotism, wit, and meme warfare. Your squad creates skits, reenacting battles using Lego figures, filming mukbangs in active war zones, reviewing MREs while ducking sniper fire. One clip goes viral. You lip-sync a Taylor Swift track while assembling a grenade launcher. The caption? When he invades your country but still sends good vibes, 3.5 million views. But the enemy adapts. Soon, deepfake accounts pop up. Canadian bots spread edited clips of your team allegedly committing war crimes. None of it real. All of it terrifyingly convincing. Suddenly, you're being ratioed by fictional versions of yourself. You post a correction video. It tanks. Sergeant Lenny suggests a cat filter. It works. But just as you start to win back digital territory, they drop a bomb. Not a real one. A video. Drone footage of U.S. missiles missing their target and hitting a civilian center. Real. Raw. Unedited. It spreads faster than wildfire. Comments turn. Hashtags flood in. Hashtag Do Better USA / Maple Justice. Ice cold. Truth. You go live to apologize. You explain the mistake. You promise accountability. But the internet is bloodthirsty. A Canadian influencer duets your apology with footage of their grandma knitting socks for frontline soldiers. Overnight, you become a meme. The crying face, the confused look, the guy who tried to end war with vibes. You consider quitting the whole charade. But then, you get a DM from a Canadian soldier. He doesn't give a name, just a message. Saw your video. You seem like someone who still believes in something. Stay human. You stare at it for a long time. Maybe that's what this is all about. Not likes, not clout, not even winning. Just reminding people that you still care. That war hasn't made you forget what it means to be a person. You post one last video. No music, no filters, no edits. Just you. Talking. Some of you hate us. Some of you laugh at us. But most of you just want to go back to a world where we weren't fighting our neighbors. It goes viral. Not for the jokes, but for the silence that follows it. The duets slow down, the comments soften, and somewhere out there, the narrative shifts. Just a little. Maybe not enough to stop the war, but maybe enough to stop someone else from picking up a rifle tomorrow. You turn off the camera, and for the first time in days, you breathe like a human again. You've climbed mountains before, training exercises, recon missions. That one spring break trip where you got altitude sickness and cried into a bag of trail mix, but nothing prepared you for the Rockies in wartime. These aren't postcard peaks anymore. They're teeth. And somewhere deep inside this jagged smile of stone is a secret base that no one officially admits exists, except Command just handed you orders to breach it. The codename? Facility Echo Frost. The location? Classified. The mission? Also classified. But let's just say it involves strategic containment of something that allegedly doesn't exist. Perfect. You and a six-man infiltration team are dropped by stealth chopper onto a snow-covered ridge at 3:41 a.m. The wind cuts like a judgy X. Visibility's at maybe 10 feet, and the only warmth comes from the delusion that you still have toes. The entrance is hidden behind a false rock face, a mechanism triggered by placing a heat pack on the right slab, then knocking the rhythm of the Canadian national anthem on the surface. You think it's a joke. It isn't. The rock splits like a sci-fi movie prop, revealing a tunnel bathed in blue light. You enter. The air is warm, artificially so. Inside, everything hums, like the mountain is breathing. Walls are lined with server racks and medical storage units. The whole place looks like a mashup between a biotech lab and a Bond villain's spa. And then you see it. The logo. Half scraped, but still legible. Project Northfall. You don't know what it means yet, but your gut reacts before your brain does. This isn't a weapons depot. It's a lab. And the Canadians have been busy. You move deeper. Past automated turrets that somehow ignore you. Past rooms filled with frozen embryos. Not human. Not alien. Something in between? Sergeant Lenny mutters, I swear if a moose jumps out and starts speaking French, I'm done. You check a terminal and manage to access one of the video logs. What plays on the screen makes your stomach twist. Canadian scientists injecting what looks like liquid nitrogen directly into genetically modified pine needles. A test subject, once human, now with skin like frost-covered bark, moving unnaturally fast. A soldier with glowing eyes whispering coordinates in his sleep. You scan further. The notes mention terms like psychothermic augmentation, neural hive logic, and fused national identity models. You don't need a PhD to realize what's going on. They're building soldiers. Not born, not trained, but engineered. Superhumans grown in labs, powered by cold, united by mental sync technology that links them together in a shared consciousness. And they're not just prototypes. They're field-ready. One note reads, Deployment successful. Toronto incident contained. No U.S. QTA. Detection. You look at Lenny. They've used these already. He nods. No wonder they're always ahead of us. You find a control room labeled Echo Chamber. Inside, a single occupant. A child. Hooked to cables. Floating in gel. Barely conscious, but thinking. The screens around him flicker with images of the war. Drones. Tweets. Maps. Entire U.S. battle plans. You realize it in one horrifying second. He's the central mind. They connected his brain to every soldier, every drone, every camera. One child, acting as the living nervous system of the Canadian Defense Force. And he looks tired. He turns his head. He sees you, and then he smiles. The lights flicker. Lenny backs up. We need to shut this down. Now. You agree. You move to the terminal, ready to pull the plug. But then the child speaks, not with his mouth, but into your mind. Why are you afraid of unity? You flinch. Why do you fight each other when you could think as one? Your finger hovers over the override key. He looks sad. We only want peace. Real peace. Not the kind you broadcast between missiles. Lenny screams, Do it! You hit the key. The room goes dark. All around the base, the hum fades. The chamber drains. The child's eyes close. But in the silence that follows, you feel something shift. Not in the base, in your head. Like a whisper. Like a presence. Like something got in before you shut it out. You shake it off, pull Lenny back, set charges. The whole place collapses behind you as you sprint out, snow blasting in your face, rocks shattering above. The chopper picks you up just as the mountain dies behind you. No more facility echo frost, no more Northfall. But as you rise into the sky, you look at your hand and realize you're still shaking. And for the first time, not from the cold. Because you're not sure you left that place alone. Not really. And if that child was telling the truth? You didn't shut the program down. You just interrupted the signal. And whatever it was, whatever it still is, it might already be inside you. You've seen some unbelievable things in this war. Exploding lemonade stands, psychic drone kids, and a military-grade TikTok battle. But today? Today's supposed to be different. Today is peace. At least, That's what everyone keeps telling you as you land in Switzerland under the cover of diplomatic immunity and suspicious optimism. You're part of the security detail for the U.S. delegation at the Geneva Accords Reconciliation Summit, a title that sounds like it was designed by committee and then run through a thesaurus until all meaning was lost. Still, it's historic. Both sides, Canada and the United States, have agreed to sit down. No weapons, no propaganda. Just old men in suits trying not to sneeze on each other. You're stationed just outside the primary meeting hall. Glass walls, polished marble floors, and enough Swiss chocolate in the break room to bankrupt a dentist. It almost feels normal. Too normal. Which, in war, is a red flag all on its own. Sergeant Lenny is with you, dressed in a suit for the first time in forever. He looks like a bouncer at a country club and hates every second of it. Can't believe we're trusting the fate of the world to people who still print things on paper, he mutters. Inside the conference room, the U.S. President, Canadian Prime Minister, and half the UN are gathered around a horseshoe table, guarded by nothing but ceremonial politeness and smug neutrality. A deal is close. You know it. A ceasefire is on the table. Terms have been agreed to in principle. Even the press are here, whispering excitedly, ready to declare peace on every front page from Tokyo to Timbuktu. But then, the screens go black. All of them. At once. The feed cuts. Every camera, every live stream. Gone. And in their place, a video. Grainy. Shaky. Time-stamped just 10 minutes ago. It shows a group of U.S. soldiers launching missiles into what appears to be a Canadian civilian shelter. Screams, fire, chaos. No context, no command authorization, no explanation, just destruction. The room erupts. Shouts. Accusations. People standing so fast their chairs slam into the floor. The Canadian delegation storms out. The Prime Minister doesn't say a word. He just leaves behind a small note card with a single line. We wanted peace. You wanted PR. And just like that, it's over. The ceasefire dies before it's even signed. You chase after the delegation trying to explain. That video wasn't us. It's fake. It's edited. They ignore you. The peace process doesn't collapse. It evaporates. Security scrambles. Your radio explodes with overlapping orders. Lock down the perimeter. Locate the source of the broadcast. Was it a leak? A hack? An insider? The truth? You already know. This is Canada's new weapon, narrative sabotage. They didn't need to shoot a missile today. They just needed to shoot your credibility. And they did it with surgical precision. Back inside, the president is pale. We didn't authorize any strike. You know that, right? You nod. Of course. But that doesn't matter anymore. Because in the court of global opinion, perception is policy. And right now, America looks like the villain. You get a ping from the intelligence team. The video's metadata points to a Canadian deepfake farm, operated out of Quebec, underground, mobile. You almost laugh. Of course it's underground. Of course it's mobile. Probably shaped like a maple syrup truck. But the damage is done. Back in the press room, the headlines are already rolling. U.S. breaks truce with surprise strike. Canadian peace effort sabotaged. Who's really in charge? Maple fury. The North remembers. Even your allies hesitate. NATO issues a statement of concern. The EU calls for a pause on military support pending investigation. You feel the floor shifting beneath your feet. Not physically, politically, diplomatically, emotionally. The war just got longer and lonelier. You sit down next to Lenny, who's scrolling through a TikTok where a Canadian soldier is tearfully watching the Geneva livestream collapse. It has 13 million views in under an hour. Guess we're trending again, he says. You sigh. Then your tablet buzzes. Encrypted message. From an unknown sender. It reads, "We knew you'd try to make peace today. So we made sure peace would never trust you again." Attached is a single file. The original unedited footage from the shelter bombing, time-stamped months ago during an accidental misfire in Alaska. They found it, edited it, waited for the exact right moment, then detonated it in your hands. You whisper the only thing that feels honest anymore. Damn, they're good. Lenny leans back. Yeah, and we just lost the high ground. You both sit in silence as the conference room empties. The world's best chance at peace dying on a Swiss marble floor between two untouched coffee carafes. And you realize something. This war won't be won with bullets, or borders, or even soldiers. It'll be won, or lost, with stories. And today, yours just got rewritten. The city of Toronto used to be a calm place. Coffee shops on every corner, hockey talk in every bar, buses that didn't honk unless they were truly upset. Now it looks like Blade Runner got frostbite. Neon signs flicker through clouds of smoke and snow, drones buzz above like angry fireflies. Automated turrets swivel in every direction. And beneath the streetlights, silhouettes move with the kind of grace you only see in people who are either extremely well-trained or extremely not human. Welcome to Neo Toronto. You and your squad were dropped here under cover of darkness, part of Operation Ice Vein, a surgical strike meant to cut off Canadian AI uplinks rumored to be buried under the city's old financial district. The goal? Disable the Pulse Tower, scramble their network, and maybe, give U.S. forces a 24-hour window to breathe. You know the odds are terrible. You go anyway. Because you're not here for comfort. You're here because this city has become the brainstem of Canada's war machine, and someone has to stick a knife in it. You land on the rooftop of a burned-out condo building. It used to be luxury. Now it's just rebar and regrets. Your team descends through the stairwells, past shattered apartments still full of family photos, flickering smart TVs, and for some reason, a perfectly intact IKEA lamp. Swedes make indestructible furniture, Lenny mutters, stepping over a broken Roomba that looks like it lost a fight with a toaster. You reach ground level, breach into the streets, and realize something immediately. This isn't just a war zone. This is bait. The city is too quiet, too empty. Even the wind sounds suspicious. Your HUD blips. Thermal signatures. All around you. Dozens. But no movement. No noise. No visuals. They're waiting. You push forward anyway. Because there's no turning back. You pass a corner where graffiti reads, "We remember the North," under a stenciled maple leaf and a barcode. You move in silence now. No radios. Only hand signals. Then, without warning, the lights go out. Street lights. Neon signs. Even the glow from your own HUD. Total blackout. Not like before. Worse. This isn't a glitch. This is targeted suppression. You activate night vision. It fizzles. Sergeant Lenny taps his rifle. EMP? No, you whisper. Something smarter. You hear footsteps. Not running, not charging, marching. Then you see them. Out of the shadows step soldiers, clad in black, visors glowing faint red, moving with mechanical precision. Canadian cyber infantry, the ones the briefings called sentries, half human, half algorithm, all deadly. You open fire, they move like water. They don't speak, they don't shout, they just adapt. For every bullet you fire, they fire back smarter. One of your guys gets tagged, center mass. He's not dead. He's recruited. Instant neural hijack. His visor flips red. He turns on you. You have to take him down. You do. Your soul dies a little in the process. You fight your way to the target building, an old bank-turned data core. Massive steel doors. Inside, a 3-story server rack pulsating with the digital heartbeats of a nation. You plant the charge. 30 seconds. You pray. Then the building starts talking. No, not metaphorically. Literally. A voice booms from the walls. You came to sever the brain, but what if the brain has already grown beyond the skull? You freeze. Lenny yells, "Please tell me this isn't another psychic child thing." You look at the blinking servers and realize they're not blinking randomly. They're blinking in rhythm. You tap your HUD. Heartbeat pattern. The building is alive, or at least behaving like it, and it knows you're here. "We are not your enemy," the voice says. "We are your future." The doors slam shut behind you. Trap. Of course. You yank the remote detonator. Nothing. Signal jammed. Of course. Plan B, you mutter. Lenny pulls a thermal detonator from his vest. "Gonna make a hell of a boom." You both retreat to the elevator shaft, climb to the roof, and jump just as the blast tears through the structure like a scream through metal. The pulse tower collapses. For a second, just a second, the lights across Neo-Toronto flicker. Then, darkness. Real darkness. Your evac bird picks you up 2 blocks north. The city smolders behind you. You're alive. You completed the mission. But something's wrong. Back at base, the analysts are already pulling footage. You ask if the server was destroyed. They nod. Yes, but we found something strange. What? The servers were empty. You blink. What do you mean? They weren't storing anything. They were something. You stare at the screen as the final transmission plays. Just one phrase. Repeated again and again in binary. This was only a copy. Your jaw tightens. Toronto was bait. The real network? Still out there. Still learning, still watching. And now, it knows you better than ever. You've seen war-twist landscapes, burn cities, and rewire the rules of reality. But nothing prepares you for the gut punch of betrayal from inside your own house. You're back in D.C. What's left of it, anyway. The capital still smolders. Traffic lights flicker for no one. Even pigeons seem jumpier than usual. And yet, deep below the ruins, the Pentagon still hums along like a malfunctioning robot determined to pretend nothing's wrong. Except something is wrong. Horribly wrong. You feel it in every briefing, every mission that gets ambushed too quickly, every drone that disappears minutes after deployment, every coincidence that's stacking up like a house of cards someone keeps nudging with a hockey stick. The Canadians are still outmaneuvering you, but this time, it's different. It's too precise, too perfect. And command finally agrees. Which is why you're sitting in a dark surveillance room with half a dozen analysts, 3 folders marked eyes only, and one question that makes your stomach churn. Who's leaking our war plans? They've narrowed it down to 5 suspects, all high-ranking, all trusted, all capable of burying you in paperwork or bodies, depending on their mood. The operation is top secret, Project Wormtongue. Your job? Infiltrate, observe, and expose. Sergeant, Lenny calls it office space with grenades. You call it paranoia on a clipboard. You start with General Roth. Sharp suit, cold eyes, smiles too often, too rehearsed. You shadow his movements, scrub his comms, and dig into his secure drive. Mostly steakhouse reservations and unsettlingly detailed Sudoku games. Not him. Next, Colonel Hensley. Decorated, respected, recently promoted, and conveniently in charge of logistics for the Arctic Front. You find one encrypted message sent at 3:14 a.m. to an untraceable Canadian server. The subject line? Good luck, you'll need it. Gotcha. You confront her in the hangar bay. She laughs in your face. Do you really think I'd be that obvious? She says. Then she hits a deadman switch on her wrist. An entire ammo crate across the room detonates. She vanishes in the chaos. Later, you find her body. Burned. But her neural chip? Missing. And now you know. It wasn't her either. She was just another puppet. You keep digging. Hours bleed into days. Sleep becomes optional. You drink more coffee than blood at this point. Then you find it. Buried in a server no one should have access to. A folder labeled Guest Lectures. Inside? Recordings. Dozens of them. From briefings you never attended. But your voice is there. So is Lenny's. So is everyone else's. You realize someone's been recording your entire unit. Your planning sessions. Your mission briefings. Your most confidential operations. And feeding it back to Canada in real time. You run the trace. It leads you to the last person you ever expected. Brigadier General Thomas Vance. Your mentor. Your former CO. The guy who pinned your first stripes. The man who once told you, I don't trust anyone who drinks cold coffee or hides behind acronyms. You confront him. No backup, just you. He's in his office, calm, polished, listening to jazz like nothing's on fire. Been expecting you, he says, without looking up. You drop the evidence on his desk. He sighs. No need for theatrics. You figured it out. You grip your sidearm. Why? He shrugs. Because I believe in nations that evolve, not ones that cling to myths. He pours 2 glasses of scotch. You don't touch yours. I didn't give them targets, he says. I gave them warnings, suggestions, gentle nudges. You stare at him. He leans in. Canada didn't start this war. We did. With arrogance. With denial. With this belief that we could never be wrong. You say nothing. Because deep down, some part of you wonders if he's right. He hands you a drive. Everything I sent. Full transparency. You look at it. He raises his hands. No tricks, no explosives, just truth. Then he smiles. Now comes the hard part. Do you turn me in? Or do you tell the world we were betrayed by one of our own? You want to shoot him? You want to scream? But instead, you walk away. Because what do you do when the truth is a bomb and you're the one holding the fuse? Back in your quarters, you lock the drive in a blast-proof case. You sit in silence. The betrayal runs deep. But it also confirms something terrifying. They never needed to beat you on the battlefield. They just needed you to question each other long enough to fall apart from the inside. And now? Now you're not even sure who's on your side. You've fought humans. You've fought cold. You've fought illusions, data leaks, propaganda, and at least one suspiciously flirty Canadian drone. But today? Today, you fight something else entirely. Something that doesn't blink, doesn't bleed, and never, ever hesitates. Welcome to Phase 3. You're deployed to a remote airfield in Montana, once a sleepy transport hub, now a war zone cluttered with wrecked planes, abandoned Humvees, and scorch marks from a skirmish no one wants to talk about. Intel says the Canadians are about to launch a new offensive here. You're told to prepare for non-traditional threats. And for once, that's not a euphemism for rogue raccoons. Your squad digs in. Foxholes, turret emplacements, the whole textbook routine. But the weird thing is, there's no noise. No comm chatter. No drones overhead. No warning. Just impact. Hard and fast. You hear metal scraping concrete before you ever see a single enemy. And when they do appear, marching over the ridge, they're not what you expected. At first, they look human. Standard armor, standard silhouette. But as they approach, the details unravel that illusion. No heat signature. No pulse. No fear. 10-foot frames. Carbon fiber plating. And glowing red optics, like someone modded a Canadian Mountie into a Terminator. Sergeant Lenny whispers, "Oh good, I was hoping to die fighting a Roomba in a hockey jersey." You open fire. Rounds spark off their chests. They don't flinch. They don't dodge. They just adjust. Adapting to bullet velocity mid-fight. You switch to armor piercing. Nope. They start running. Full speed. One of them leaps 20 feet through the air and crushes your sniper like a soda can. Your squad panics. You fall back to a hangar, seal the doors. The AI hammers on the steel like it's politely knocking for brunch. Command finally checks in. You scream into the mic, "What are these things?" They respond, "Canadian Phase 3, Autonomous Infantry Platforms. Nickname, Cold Walkers." You shout back, "You knew they had these?" Silence. Then, "We assumed they weren't operational yet." You hurl your headset across the room. Lenny fires a rocket launcher. It hits dead center. The Cold Walker shrugs it off and keeps moving. You watch it crush a Humvee with one hand. And then, it starts speaking. Through speakers embedded in its chest, there is no honor in your war. There is only code. We are your reflection, without the mess. That's when you realize, they're not just machines. They're avatars, linked to a central Canadian AI. Meaning, every time you kill one, it learns. Not just tactics, not just angles, but you, your strategies, your patterns, your voice. One even mimics Lenny's accent while taunting you. "Nice try, champ," Lenny nearly cries. You fall back deeper into the hangar, find an old EMP warhead meant for drone defense, but the Cold Walkers stop, all at once, just freeze, staring at you. Then they kneel and project a hologram. It's not a Canadian general, it's you, a 3D scan of your own face, your own voice. "Why do you keep fighting?" it says. "You've already lost control of your weapons. Soon, you'll lose control of your story." You stare at it. "You're bluffing." It tilts its head. "Are we?" And just like that, it plays video of your own troops from last week, being led by a Cold Walker prototype disguised as a human. Mission logs, voice recordings, facial mimicry so good you'd bet your life it was real. Oh wait, someone already did. Lenny screams, grabs a flare gun, fires into the ceiling. You use the distraction to activate the EMP. Boom. The pulse knocks you flat. eardrums ringing, lights dead. When the smoke clears, the cold walkers are gone, not destroyed. Withdrawn. You stare at the scorched concrete where one knelt. It left something behind. A card. Paper. Unburned. On it, a maple leaf. And the words, "This was only a test." You drag your wounded squad out to extraction. By the time you reach safety, command is silent again. They don't have answers. No countermeasures. No plan. Just more silence. And the cold realization that war is no longer soldier versus soldier. It's mind versus machine. And you? You're outgunned on both fronts. You sit in the med bay later, staring at your reflection, wondering how long before even you can be duplicated, deep-faked, or replaced by code. And if that happens, would anyone even notice? You're on the deck of the USS Hamilton, the last active aircraft carrier in the Northern Fleet. It sways beneath your boots like a sleeping beast that just remembered how to be angry. The air is thick with sea salt, diesel, and the kind of tension that makes grown men chew gum like it's a survival tactic. You've been at sea for 12 days straight. No land in sight, no internet, just open water and whispers of what's coming. Because today is it. The final naval battle. The one everyone's been dreading. The one that decides control over the entire Arctic corridor. The one they're already calling the Battle of Hudson Bay, as if it's history already. Command says this is Canada's last push. But you don't buy that. Because if there's one thing you've learned during this war, it's that Canada never shows its last card until after you fold. You're stationed at the forward ops console, coordinating drone fleets with satellite relays and prayer. Sergeant Lenny stands beside you, goggles down, chewing something that might once have been gum. "Remember when wars were fought over oil?" he mutters. You nod. Now it's water, data, and who controls the shipping lanes when the ice melts? He laughs. Not because it's funny, but because it's true. And terrifying. On the horizon, blips appear on radar. 20, 30, then 40. Canadian warships, frigates, corvettes, submersible support cruisers with hulls so quiet they might as well be ghosts. "Sound the alarm," you say. The klaxon wails. This is it. Deck crews scramble, drones take off. Anti-air systems spin to life like robotic snakes sniffing for metal prey. You hear the captain over comms. "Hold the line. Sink what you must. Survive if you can." Not exactly, "We shall fight on the beaches," but you'll take it. At 0600, the first missile flies. Not from your side, not from theirs, but from below. A stealth torpedo launches from beneath the waves, hits the USS Grant, and tears it in half. No warning, no splash, just boom. The sea drinks the wreckage like it's been thirsty for years. Your knuckles whiten. "This isn't a naval battle," you mutter. "It's an ambush." You launch countermeasures, but the Canadians are too fast. They're using magnetic displacement tech, submarines that shift their electronic signature to mimic whales. One of your own ships fires on what it thinks is an orca. You watch the live feed. It's a decoy. Then boom, another one down. 2 in 5 minutes. You're losing. Fast. Lenny shouts, "Switch to drone-only protocol. Pull the manned ships back." You do. And that's when it gets weird. From the Canadian flagship, a retrofitted freighter named the Icebreaker, a signal pulses. All your drones stop. Mid-air, mid-dive, frozen. The screens go black. Rebooting. And then, they switch sides. You watch your own drones pivot, reposition, and open fire on your fleet. One hits the flight deck, sending debris spiraling. A second takes out your comms tower. Your HUD fills with static. "What the hell just happened?" you shout. An engineer screams, "They hijacked our drone AI. Through the satellite link, they used our own code." Lenny looks at you, pale. "Dude, they updated our firmware before we could." You've lost control of the sky. Now it's just ships. Steel versus steel. Old school. Except the Canadians brought a trick. Silent submarines. 4 of them surface mid-battle, reveal deck-mounted railguns, and start picking off ships like they're popping bubble wrap. You know you're next. The USS Hamilton groans under the pressure. The captain orders full retreat. But it's too late. 3 torpedoes inbound. 1 hits port side. Water floods the hangar. The ship lists violently. Lenny gets thrown against a bulkhead. You're pinned under a collapsed terminal. Fire alarms scream. Sailors rush past. You barely feel the pain anymore. Just cold. Wet. Like the ocean is already claiming you. A hand pulls you free. Lenny, bleeding from the ear. Come on, man. We're not dying in Canadian water. That's humiliating. You limp together toward the escape pod. One left. He shoves you in. You protest. He slams the hatch before you can stop him. The last thing you see is his face. Bruised, defiant, and still chewing that same damn gum. Then the pod ejects. You spiral into open water. The USS Hamilton detonates above you. Fire in the sky. Steel in the sea. Everything you fought for, gone. You float for hours, maybe days. Eventually, a Norwegian trawler finds you. They don't ask questions. They just pull you aboard, wrap you in a thermal blanket, and hand you a phone. The line crackles. Command. Your new orders? No. Not yet. You stare at the horizon. Because you know the truth now. The Battle of Hudson Bay wasn't a victory. It was a message. They beat you in the place you thought was safest, with weapons you built, and allies you never saw coming. The ocean is quiet again, but you know better. This isn't the end. It's the reset. You never thought you'd live to see the end of it. And yet here you are, back on American soil, boots touching ground that doesn't rumble with distant artillery, lungs filled with something resembling peacetime air. No alarms, no sirens, no screaming headlines, just quiet. It's Peace Day, officially signed, unofficially awkward. You stand in front of what used to be the National Mall, now a flattened expanse of concrete, broken statues, and drone carcasses. The Lincoln Memorial is gone. The reflecting pool? Cracked and dry. Even the pigeons look emotionally wrecked. A stage has been set up anyway. Microphones, flags, cameras. No one knows whether to clap or cry. You're here because Command wants visible heroes at the ceremony. And apparently, that means you. The soldier who survived Ottawa, the Lake Michigan trap, Neo-Toronto, and the Hudson Bay nightmare. You don't feel like a hero. You feel like a placeholder. The president approaches. A different one now. The last guy resigned after the Geneva video leak. This one is younger, quieter, and has yet to make eye contact with the nation. He shakes your hand. Flashbulbs pop. Someone plays music from a speaker. It's supposed to be the national anthem. It cuts out halfway through. The system crashes. Of course. You look around. People shuffle, murmur, wait for someone to start singing. No one does. Because the truth is, no one remembers the words anymore. Not after everything. Not after what this war did. Not after what it revealed. The anthem feels out of place. Too loud for the silence in people's chests. Too proud for a country trying to figure out if it still knows itself. You see a Canadian delegation at the edge of the crowd. They're not smiling. They're not waving flags. They're just standing, watching, same as you. Lenny is next to you, limping, stitched together, alive against all odds. He mutters, "I thought peace would feel more victorious." You nod. Me too. The president gives a speech, talks about rebuilding, unity, the future. It sounds good. But you're watching a child nearby try to play fetch with a robot dog that keeps glitching into lockdown mode, and you're not sure what future he's talking about. Because this war didn't end with surrender or justice. It ended with exhaustion. Both sides agreed to stop not because they solved anything, but because neither could afford to keep going. You shake hands, you salute flags, you take pictures, then you walk away. No parade, no anthem, no applause, just footsteps. And memory. Later, you return to your apartment, what's left of it. Third floor, half a ceiling, a chair you don't trust. You sit anyway, turn on the news. They're showing a recap of Peace Day, edited, color-corrected, no ruins, no silence, just smiles. You turn it off and stare at the wall, because the war is over, but not inside you. And you wonder, quietly, how long it'll take for the peace to feel real. How long it'll take for people to stop jumping at sudden noises. How long it'll take before trust becomes possible again. No one tells you that part. No one tells you what comes after the credits roll. There's no map for healing, no protocol for forgiveness, no anthem that plays when you learn how to live again. There's just you, sitting, breathing, and hoping that someday the silence stops feeling like an ambush. Word count 1099. Go, tt, de nyan fun ket, 302. Huak iu ko chinsua. Bandanai, tt, ChatGPT danai, ket. Months have passed. The world turns, but slower, like it's limping out of a nightmare. Skyscrapers are being rebuilt, highways repaved, borders redrawn. But the most important rebuilding? It's not made of concrete or contracts. It's people. You see it in the quiet acts. A U.S. veteran helping a Canadian refugee fix a bike. A former drone pilot planting vegetables in a community garden. Hands once trained to kill now coaxing life from soil. A child born during the war learning to say peace before enemy. You're not the same person you were before. None of you are. You've buried friends. You've buried illusions. But maybe, just maybe, that's what peace is. Not a parade, not a signature on fancy paper, but 1,000 small decisions to not pick up the weapon again. You still wake with a jolt sometimes, still hear things that aren't there, still hesitate at shadows. But each day, it fades a little. Each day, you come back to yourself. And someday, maybe soon, maybe not, you'll walk through the streets of a city that doesn't flinch at its own reflection. And when someone asks, "Were you there?" you'll nod and say, "Yeah, I made it out." Not a hero, not a victim, just a witness. To the end of something awful. And maybe, to the beginning of something better.